After 120 days, on the 1st of September, we finally entered the third and last state, Washington. Until this point, we had already walked 2,000 miles, but there were still 500 miles more to go. Keeping in mind that winter was coming, we didn't have any time to lose. Our winter gear was already sent back home, and new snow would have been extremely dangerous. We didn't want to risk falling off a mountain or getting frostbites. The weather changed all the time. Out of a sudden, warming sunlight would turn into a frightening thunderstorm. With the constantly dropping temperatures, it was most likely that rain would become snow. Even after 2,000 miles, you don't get used to the pain. It might fade, but it's still there. I got stronger and weaker at the same time. My legs would take more miles, but I constantly lost weight. It was time to get off the trail. But that wasn't the only challenge. With all the rain day after day, it was hard to keep our clothes dry. The moment we would stop moving, we would get cold, and I was happier than never before to just grab a dozen power bars out of my pockets. I couldn't imagine to sit down somewhere for only 10 minutes to prepare food. Sometimes I walked 20 miles without stopping a single time. By watching this video, you might wonder what I'm talking about, but I prefer to show you the great views instead of another foggy forest. But I can tell you it was very difficult. But even a bad day on the trail is still a good day. Rain might be immutable, but your attitude is not. So what else happened in Washington? A friend joined us for a couple of days. Actually, it was my partner's friend. 1 year ago, when I told people that I'm going to hike the PCT, some of them wanted to come and join me for certain sections. But I always told them that it's not a good idea. A thru hike is not a pleasurable hike. As a thru hiker, your main goal is to get from A to B. Of course, the beauty of the trail is still a part of it, but it's all about the challenge. A person who comes in for a couple of days got a totally different mindset. And it's obvious that you won't be in the same physical shape. Being on the trail for several days, you are used to walk as far and fast as you can. But suddenly, you have to find a new pace. Larry David said once, "A good compromise is when both parties are dissatisfied." Let's talk about the different mindsets. As a thru hiker, you don't care about 5 days walking in a forest. There's more behind and in front of you. The PCT goes through 7 different climate zones, and there's always something new to discover. But for your friend who might just got 5 days, it can be very frustrating seeing one tree after the other. So what about a more scenic section? Normally that involves a lot of up and downs, and believe me or not, you will push your friend too hard. You don't remember your first days. All the pain, all those breaks. Now you feel good and you just want to make miles. And what about the weather? As a thru hiker, you know deep in your heart that the sun will shine again. The rain is just part of the challenge. Your friend got a different opinion. It might rain the whole time he's out there, and that doesn't make the situation any better. He will feel miserable and frustrated. Moreover, it's quite unlikely that he invested in proper gear, which means that someone might enter your tent in the middle of the night. Don't forget that your friend is on holidays and you are on a mission. There are better opportunities to spend time together than on the PCT. What I told you now is not exactly my experience, but also the stories of thru hikers getting joined by friends and people who visited thru hikers. In my opinion, it's not a good idea to join someone on a thru hike because of different mindsets and physical shapes. It was a completely different situation when the PCT hiker named Good Luck joined us in California for more than 2 weeks. We wouldn't have become friends when we wouldn't have walked the same pace and stopped at the same places for at least 1 or a couple of days. There's a completely different dynamic between thru hiker friends and regular friends. Of course, you always take care of each other, but thru hikers understand each other's independence and don't have any expectations. Thru hikers might join each other but still hike their own hike. As regular friends, you are kind of stuck together, mainly because you want to be together. But as I said before, there are other opportunities. During our hike from Mexico to Canada, we met a lot of people from all over the world. Most people came from Northern America and Europe, but there were also some hikers from Israel, India, South Africa, Taiwan, Japan, and many more countries. We never hiked together, but stopped at the same places to fetch water, have breaks, or camp. This would go on for several days and would only stop when people went into towns. We tried to follow each other using logbooks provided on the trail, but many times we got surprised by old friends appearing behind us who should have been far ahead. Sometimes we met people who we hadn't seen for 2,000 miles. There are a lot of hikers behind and in front of you, but it can happen that you don't see anyone for a whole day. If you walk the same pace and stop in towns for the same period of time, you might never meet each other, although the other person is only 20 miles behind of you. And of course, most people hike northbound. We didn't see a lot of southbounders until we got to Oregon. Just at the end of August, we crossed paths with all the southbounders who started in July. For 2 weeks, we met more than 10 hikers a day heading southbound. Getting to know all the other hikers and sharing several moments is a big part of the trail. We're not the main reason of hiking the trail. Of course, you don't know each other, but personality-wise, you will have more in common with fellow hikers than your friends at home. The friendships you create on the PCT will hold a lifetime. Unlike your relationship, every time I attended a long-distance hike in the past, I started alone and built up a trail family along the way. I hiked with one other person or a group of people. We compromised on stops and camps, but it wouldn't have been a problem if I wanted to go my own way. You are there for each other, sharing wonderful, scary, and adventurous moments, but you stay independent. I really wanted to hike the PCT by myself. I said no to every single person who wanted to join, but I couldn't say no to my boyfriend. Especially on the PCT, I wanted to pick my own pace and distances. There are 100 ways of hiking the PCT, and if I would have been alone, it would have been a completely different trail. It was harder to compromise about every single bit than crossing passes and rivers. It was harder to keep our relationship intact than finishing the PCT. Of course, we tried it out before we attended the PCT. We just got back from hiking in Patagonia and a 3-week circuit in Nepal, but these hikes were always about the scenery and didn't involve any challenge. We were naive to think that we could hike behind each other for 2,650 miles. As a couple, you normally try to stay together and share every single moment. But let me give you this advice. Be ready to separate. It doesn't mean that you end your relationship, but just that you hike by yourself for at least some miles or maybe several days. We are kind of used to spend 24/7 together, but we still got quite different personalities and do things in different ways. And sometimes you just need a break from compromising all the time. Every compromise starts with an argument, and you might not be the kindest person in that situation. Don't risk your relationship and just give each other some freedom. When we finished the PCT, we weren't just happy to finish the trail, but also to have finished it together. Now our relationship is stronger than ever, but honestly, there were a lot of critical moments. Try to be as tolerant and mindful with your partner as you can. The PCT is a long journey. Thank you so much for watching this video. There's a whole PCT movie coming up as soon as I find the time. Just subscribe the channel. Happy trails!